Good evening. I'm so excited for this, and I want to welcome up right away Linda Marsh, who is the artist that was commissioned to do this piece. Linda, come on up. Let's give her a round of applause. So Linda's going to kind of walk through this process as the artist, something I have no idea about, and so I've been really pleased with Linda, how she took what we were kind of looking to do and made it happen, and I just can't believe that it's there. First time I saw it here in the church was tonight at Mass, so very beautiful. I cannot wait to go back there and spend more time, but in the meantime, I'm going to listen to you. So here you go.
Thank you, Father Carlson. Oh, so it's been a while getting this process going. We're very excited to have it finished. When you look at a work of art, oftentimes the very first thing you do is, you think about how does it make you feel? Does it make you smile? Does it make you laugh? Does it make you uneasy? Does it make you question things? But oftentimes, inevitably, you will wonder, how did the artist make that? So it's really great to spend some time with you guys here this evening to kind of walk through the process. How did we make this? Because a lot of people do not really understand how sculpture is made. It's kind of a complex thing. So every sculpture starts with an idea. And as I've become more of a sculptor that's made on commissions, oftentimes that idea is not my own. A client will come to me with their idea, and they want my help bring that idea to life so that they can share the concept with other people. So when I met with Father Carlson and Monica for the first time, they walked me through their ideas for what they wanted in a sculpture. And what rang through to me, what I really understood as, the thing to shoot for, was they wanted something that really showed the loving relationship between Jesus and St. John. They wanted to show that closeness, that friendship, and they wanted to show it at a time in their life when kids, the way kids play together, when they're that age, they just run up and grab each other. And so it was important to have the kids touching each other. And of course, to have their adoring mothers looking over them. So the first thing, and also Father Carlson, a very important point, is he wanted this sculpture to not interfere with parishioners' prayers. This is at a very quiet place. We wanted this piece to just maybe seep quietly into people lighting a candle for their loved ones. So my idea was to do a relief sculpture. And this first image is the very simple line drawing. And this line drawing was done to the size of the sculpture back there. So I got this drawn out on a big white board and then showed everyone, and they said, yes, got the thumbs up to the main design and the main composition. And so then I just started applying clay, as we do as sculptors. Next slide, please. So you can kind of see it starts to come to life a little bit. As you can see, the clay forms coming in 3 dimensions out from the white board. Next slide. And here's another one. It gets a little crazy looking after a while. The idea is to get the big shapes in first, kind of identify the main volumes so that you can tell the 3-dimensionality of it. And then as we go, we fine-tune it with a variety of tools. And afterwards at the reception, I'll have some of the tools and some of the clay. You can actually feel it if you're interested. Sometimes it's kind of fun to have a little show and tell. Next slide. So this is the finished clay, so you can kind of see how the process went. We had a few modifications, a few little tweaks to the composition as we went, but that is the finished clay. So this clay is an oil-based clay. It never dries. So one could continually work it and work it and work it till you get it just right. And so probably sometime soon, I'll take the original clay, it's in my studio now, and I'll peel that clay off of that board and put it in my bucket, and it will become something else. I'll reuse that to be a new thing. So that's kind of exciting. So the next steps that you're going to see are the following steps to turn this clay into the finished bronze that you see. These steps are all done at a foundry, so it's a special facility, and it can get a little complicated, so I'll try to explain it, and certainly afterwards, if you have further questions, I'll be available if you're curious. Okay, so the first thing we do is we take a mold of the piece, which basically we set the piece down on a flat surface, and we cover it in about 1 inch of plaster. That plaster hardens, and then we carefully remove the plaster. And so we now have a plaster mold. Next slide. And then you can see this is my husband, Pat. He helps a lot with a lot of the foundry work. That purple stuff that's going on that white plaster, that's wax. So what you do is you take some melted wax and you make about a 1/4 inch deep, basically a wax shell of your image. So now you have this wax shell of your piece. Next slide. Then you lift that wax shell, you stand it up, and you attach wax tubes. All those red tubes are actually made of wax. And in the casting process, they will serve as like veins and arteries through which the molten bronze will flow. The little triangle up at the top is actually a round funnel. And so that will be the little funnel that the molten bronze is able to flow through. Next slide. Then we take that whole apparatus. It almost looks like a musical instrument to me sometimes. You've got the purple wax shell of the image. You've got the cone, the pour cup that will pour through, and you've got all those wax tubes. And then we stand it up, and we go through a process called investment, and that is to prepare the piece for the molten bronze. Next slide. This is a little tough to see, but it's a plastic tube with that whole wax apparatus lowered down inside it. And then what we're going to do is pour fireproof material into that tube. Next slide. So there's Pat pouring. Oh, can you go back one? There we go. That's Pat pouring the fireproof material. It's basically crushed fire brick, plaster, water, and silica sand, all slurried together. You pour it in there. And so now you can imagine that hardens, and it encases all of that wax in that fireproof material. Next slide. Then we load it up in a kiln and burn out all the wax. So now everything that is wax in those tubes is now a hollow space. So you can imagine that hollow space. Next slide. Then we bury all those tubes in sand, and that is to help hold them solid. And also, it's for safety, too, so that we don't, if those were to break open, bronze wouldn't go flying everywhere. So it's a kind of a safety thing, too. Next slide. Then we fire off the oven, and we melt the bronze. The bronze gets heated up to about 1,975 degrees or so, so it's really hot. Next slide. And then we pour it into each one of those and each one of those tubes is a piece of art. Next slide. Then we dig those tubes out of the sand. Next slide. And literally pound them open with a sledgehammer. So, believe it or not, it comes out looking like that. No, it does not actually. We got a few steps to go before it looks like that. Next slide. So this is basically what they look like when when a bronze piece is poured. When you first crack them open, they look crazy. All those red wax tubes are now bronze tubes. So every one of those has to be clipped off and sanded. All the connection points have to be sanded off. So there's a lot of bronze finishing work that goes into the piece after it's poured. Next. And then we apply a chemical patina to it, and then it looks like that. The chemical patina it can be a number of different things depending on the color that you want. So for this piece, we chose a sulfurated potash as a base coat, and then some ferric nitrate to make it have a warm glow. And then we put a protective coat of wax on it, and voila, it's done. So again, thank you so much. It's been such a wonderful experience working with Father Carlson and the staff. It's just a real honor to create this piece for your parish. Thank you.
There's going to be time for questions for Linda and the gathering place afterwards. Just two questions came to my mind. From start to finish, how long did this process take you?
Okay, so I would say, I guess we started meeting back in March, I think. Was it March? I think it was March. No. It was September. Yeah, September, yeah. So it took a while. I would say if we were to compress every element of it, we could have skimmed it off a little bit of time, but the foundry operation alone probably took 2 months. So it's always dependent on, their schedule and how they can work pieces in. So yeah, it was a while.
And kind of putting you on the spot here, what was your most enjoyable part of doing this piece?
Okay, I think my favorite part. So my husband and I recently moved houses, and this piece was the first sculpture piece that I worked on in my new home studio. So just to sit there quietly, looking over the river, we got a place in Brooklyn Park on the river, to just sit there quietly and work on this sculpture was just lovely. It was, so for me, it was the sculpting itself. This such a lovely image.
And one last question before I take over a little bit. Mm-hmm. Looking at the image, can you explain how, obviously looking at it right now on a screen, our eyes the eyes should be drawn to what? What's that naturally are? The eyes are drawn to the embrace of...
Absolutely, yeah. Right. Yeah. So, should I talk about that a little? Yeah. Okay. So, you may not realize, but when you're looking at a piece of artwork, it is no coincidence where your eyes go. Artists are good at kind of setting up compositions so that it pulls your eye directly in. And if you look at the composition of this, a lot of the lines, the main lines of the piece, pull your eye to that embrace. That was one of the things that when we were working through the composition, we really focused on the importance of, that embrace, that touch, those little fingers holding each other. And so all of the lines in the piece kind of pull your eye right into that spot. Yeah?
Great, thank you, Linda. So let's give her a round of applause. And I'm going to set a timer on my clock, because otherwise I'll go way too long, all right? The goal is 10 minutes or less, all right? And that puts us right at 6:30. As mentioned, the title, kind of the name for this piece is called Rejoicing in Every Generation. We actually didn't get a name for this piece until Linda emailed us last week and said every piece of art should have a name. And at that point, Monica, as well as Kelly Coles and I, started to pray about it. And I left one day from the office and I said, it has to be something probably to do with the Magnificat. Mary's, my soul proclaims in the greatness of the Lord. And so I went to prayer that next morning, and nothing really hit me. I just was convinced, though, that this name should really be based off of that. And I was about to leave the office the next day, and I was like, Monica, do we have a name yet? And she's like, no, but we got an email from someone, and she's like, I'm out. And that was actually the impetus to help me to figure out, okay, what's going to happen, and really the Holy Spirit. And speaking to Monica, I was just looking at the Magnificat. I was really looking at it on my phone and just trying to remember the Magnificat, which I pray every single night, by the way. I was like, my soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord, right? My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. But there's a line, He has mercy on those who fear Him in every generation. And so that's when it hit me and hit Monica, and it's like rejoicing in every generation. So the impetus for this piece, the main reason for this piece is for us as a parish to be able to come together and pray. And who often do we usually pray for? When people are lighting their votive candles, who are they praying for most often? Their loved ones. And so often those loved ones are our family. And we know that's true. And so just as we started to think about moving the votive candles and everything else and introducing something called the prayer box, which is back there as well, that we can drop off prayer intentions, realizing that most people are going to be praying for their family. And so I thought, let's maybe get a statue. Let's get a statue of, there has to be something out there of Mary and Elizabeth with St. John the Baptist and Jesus. And so I gave that a project to Monica, one of her first projects here to work on. A couple months later, Monica came back to me and she said, Father, I got nothing. There's nothing out there. We did get a quote from someplace out of Italy, but the problem wasn't even the money for that. It was more of they didn't listen to us. So we can put these pieces together. And if you know anything here about St. John the Baptist, everything pretty much is custom, right? That's not because we think we're better than other people. It's just because we want everything to be focused on St. John the Baptist. And so we didn't want to give up on it, but in the same sense, it didn't seem like any doors were being opened up. And then once again, that prayer box idea came to have parishioners pray. This is actually part of our strategic plan from 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. A place that we can drop off prayer intentions. We brought up in parish council, and one of our parish council members, who was actually very instrumental in this project, can start it up again, is Kelly Coles. Kelly's hanging out in the back. She doesn't want any acknowledgement, but Kelly has some contacts. I think her cousin, or maybe, I think it's your cousin, if I'm not mistaken. A nod, yes. Said, I can help, and that's how we found Linda. And from there, it really was the Holy Spirit coming and kind of leading us when we met with Linda. And for this meeting, it was just Monica and I. Kelly wasn't able to make it. What I was really impressed with Linda was that she was listening to us. She was also looking around the church and saying, okay, how does this fit in? Of course, as Linda mentioned, for this piece, our eyes, when we get close to it, should be drawn to that embrace of the toddler Jesus and St. John the Baptist. But we don't want this piece to distract us either. And so when we walk into this church, of course, hopefully our eyes are drawn where? To Jesus in the tabernacle. And as we leave, once again, like as you're leaving church, from now you're going to see that. But even now when I left church today, I was like, okay, it's not a distraction, but it's rather a place I know I can go and pray. And once again, this is all about praying. Helping parishioners to pray. I love the visitation account, especially when it says that Mary and Elizabeth spent 3 months together. But they spent 3 months together, and right that the infant, not even the infant, the baby in Mary and Elizabeth's womb leapt for joy. St. John the Baptist leapt for joy. I just imagine that Mary and Elizabeth spent 3 months together praising the Lord. Tradition would hold, by the way, that Mary stuck around until after the birth of St. John the Baptist. Stuck around actually probably till a circumcision in his naming. That's why in this window over here, Mary is present as well. But I have a hard time believing that Mary never saw St. John the Baptist after that. Why? Because they had a great friendship, a great relationship. And so we really wanted to encompass this in an image of the two coming together now with their children. For Elizabeth, by the way, waiting, right, that she is barren. She's never born a child in her old age. And now the Lord has, in his infinite wisdom, given her St. John the Baptist. And so although the scriptures don't speak about it, I'm fairly certain that they got together. And when they did, what do you think they did? As Linda mentioned, they let their children play together. There's an image that we kind of sent, I think, Linda, of two toddlers running towards each other with their arms out like they're about to tackle each other. And we see this every single day at St. John the Baptist, by the way, right? Not only see it in the school, but we see it after Mass. We see it after the 5 p.m., the 8 a.m., and the 10 a.m. These little 20-month-olds or 30-month-olds that know each other, that they're running awkwardly towards each other. and embracing. And there's one thing I made Linda change right away. Because she said that wax would be moved. I remember going down there with Kelly down to northeast Minneapolis. And I was like, they're not smiling enough. The smiles have to be bigger. Yes, on Jesus. Yes, on St. John the Baptist. But on the mothers as well. That they truly are rejoicing. So what we were really looking for was a statue relief that showed the joy of Mary and Elizabeth, now as mothers. It also shows Jesus and St. John the Baptist just playing, just being together. There's no deep theological meaning, although we did make sure that St. John the Baptist has his staff and his arms, just like he does throughout the images here for the most part on the windows. It's meant to be a place that people can go and pray, especially to pray for their family. Some hopes here, right? The hope is that young children can come and pray for their brother or sister there, or their cousin that they only see once a year. Even in deciding what material we're going to use for this relief, we want to make sure, as Linda said, if all possible, use bronze, right? Because bronze is meant to be touched. Now, I heard it's pretty well drilled into that wall. I heard it was very loud yesterday. I was not here. But Paul, thank you for all your work with that as well. But we can even think about like St. Peter's Basilica and the statue of St. Peter. What's the tradition there? You touch his toe, right? And that toe has changed colors. So we know little kids, when you get close there, they're going to touch the image. And I'm A-okay with that. Especially maybe if they're praying for their cousin that they don't see that often. Right, but it's not just for young children. There's also a place that this is, also the hope that this is a place that young married couples can come and pray for future children, or to pray for the child in the mother's womb. A place that moms can come and pray, and dads, if they're experiencing any sort of hardships in conceiving. They can pray for this intercession as well. There's a hope and a prayer that this is a place that parents can come and pray for their children, maybe even praying for their children who have fallen away from the faith. We know that's such a big reality. There is hope as well that this can be a place that people can just come and pray for their grandchildren, maybe their nieces or their nephews. Maybe it's a place so we can come and pray, that you can come and pray for friendship, longing for a friendship that Mary and Elizabeth had, and Jesus and St. John the Baptist. Overall, it's just a place to come and pray and to rejoice. At the end of the day, the Lord has chosen us, and that He rejoices in us in every generation. Our hope for this relief is that it helps us as parishioners to rejoice in the Lord, just as Mary and Elizabeth did, just as St. John the Baptist and Jesus himself did. We hope that it helps us to grow deeper in love and to experience God's love as well. I am so happy that this relief is done. We gave Linda a deadline. It was called, please get it done before July 1st. And you exceeded our expectations. So Linda, thank you so much for your work with this. I want to thank in a special way Kelly Coles being behind the scenes, making this happen. I want to thank Monica Benda as well, running with this crazy idea. I want to thank you, the parishioners, because the last question people may have, and it's not theological, is how did we afford this? Well, we afforded it for two reasons. One, Linda, thank you so much for your generosity, right? And knowing that you're doing this, yes, as a commissioned piece, but to help us. And second off, it comes from our liturgical, I forget the fund we did like 3 years ago, liturgical item fund. It was from a gala from like 3 or 4 years ago. We still had money left over. So it's not affecting our bottom line at all. but it's going to affect our spiritual line in a very beautiful way. So I hope that you do come and pray in front of this image. Feel free to touch it. It's not coming off that wall. Ask for the intercession of Mary and Elizabeth and St. John the Baptist. I couldn't imagine putting a statue up that was not about St. John the Baptist, so we had to make sure we got him in there. And once again, let's just continue to rejoice in the Lord. Hopefully we're rejoicing in every single generation. With that being said, let's go ahead and rejoice in the gathering place with some cookies and lemonade. Feel free as well to stop by that image. There's also an image on the screen, and Linda is going to be back in the gathering place to answer any questions. St. John the Baptist.